Namaskar. This is the inaugural podcast for the Vatika. You might wonder what the Vatika is. The Vatika is actually a Biophilic Studio here at the IIT Kharagpur Research Park. This is the first inaugural podcast, and I have the good fortune to start this podcast with none other than the director of IIT Kharagpur, Professor Amit Patra.
Namaskar from my side.
Professor Patra, actually, if you remember, the concept of this Vatika had started when you were the deputy director of this.
Yes, of course.
That was almost a year and a half back. But for this particular podcast, it is great that the whole cycle has turned and we have gone through one whole circle, and you are having the fortune to actually cut the ribbon as the...
Yeah, that's really a great fortune for me, because it was all in the concept, and today I see it in fruition. And actually I had moved from Kharagpur to Banaras, but lucky enough to come back today to cut the ribbon.
So one of the things which we want to do in the Vatika is create different streams of conversations. One of which is with the alumni to begin with.
Okay.
With every alumni, have just half an hour conversation on what their life is.
Absolutely.
What they want to, what has inspired them, what they have learned, and what they want to give.
Right.
So that is one stream. Then we will have another stream, for example, with not just IIT alumni, but with people who are working with science, technology, research, and they have anything to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the good fortune is that you qualify for both.
Thank you.
So first of all, I will then focus on just from a life point of view. If you can share with us a little bit about how your journey began, where you were born, how you grew up, a little bit about your family.
Well, that's pretty easy, because I spent most of my life before my recent move to Varanasi. It was in IIT Kharagpur campus. So I was born there. My father used to be a professor there, and then I studied in the school, and campus school, and then went into
Indira Vidyalaya?
No, it was Healy High School.
Healy High School.
Yeah, and then I went to IIT Kharagpur, and BTech, MTech, PhD, then a faculty member, and all. It's a linear progression. But the best thing of that campus was that the green campus that we had. So can't live anywhere else where there is no greenery.
So you have your... So you have grown up absolutely in bottom up in all place, and so now that brings us to a very interesting question. Now that when you became director, you actually became the director of another.
Yeah, I think that's a great fortune too, because I feel that if you have really grown all your life in one place, to me, director there is a lot of pressure.
Okay.
In fact, now that I'm on temporary charge also, I can feel it. But moving ahead to another place, because you see what are the things which are missing there, and you know that could be there in the other place. In fact, a lot of lessons I carried from Kharagpur to Varanasi, and I think they are slowly bearing fruit.
So the tough question is that if today you were given an option, you had to choose between continuing as IT BHU, or you were given the option to continue here.
I'll continue with IIT BHU Varanasi.
Okay. That's and for the reasons that you mentioned before this.
Yeah.
Okay. When we were having the panel discussion and the programs before this, there's something very important that you mentioned, which was the need for everyone to Atma Parichaya, as it is, to really understand who their own selves are. And one of the points you mentioned as the current education system doesn't focus on that. Would you want to elaborate on that part?
Yeah, I think it is I spoke more on a kind of emotional basis, maybe. But I do feel that, our education system mostly focus on, on the outside, gathering information from outside, rather than looking at it our own inner self. In fact, that is actually the path of spirituality, which was actually it took a backstage. In fact, Indian philosophy used to thrive on this notion of spirituality. But somehow that has taken a backseat. Maybe we have moved ahead because of Western influences and all the new technologies that have come out, which make the outside world even much more accessible. Today, in our smartphone, we get the pictures, images, videos of all places in the world, and so much of information. Really, it's mind-boggling. So, where is the time to really look at oneself? I think so. I have a feeling that maybe we should really step back a little bit and at least give 20% of your time to yourself, and 80% you leave for the rest.
But that self, what you're talking about, which a lot of these self-improvement books and all that talk about, give time to yourself, is
Yes.
somewhat slightly different from what the song that you sang very poignantly brought about. So self-improvement books talk about this, give
No,
time
it
to
is
yourself.
not about self-improvement. It's more about self-recognition.
Mhm.
What you are. Then you can talk about, there is no need to improve yourself. You should be happy being what you are. You can't be better than, if there is a God,
Mhm.
the God made you in a certain way, and you can't do it better. Right? So if God wanted you to be something, you are already there. Now, what can you do to make an impact to your immediate, people around you, to the community, to the society at large? What can you do? If you know yourself, only then you can actually make a contribution there.
So what are the factors? You alluded to mobile and this and that, but what are the factors which distract us from the self?
Actually, again, our senses, right? We have these five senses. So we see something, we get distracted. We hear something, we get distracted. Something touches us, we get distracted. Now, so we have to, in fact, being an electrical engineer, I would probably say that you have to filter it in some way. You have to know what to take and what not to take. In another word, you can say you have to take everything with a pinch of salt. Don't just believe, what you are told, because if you have to listen to anybody and everybody, and without knowing whom to trust, you'll be a very confused person. So you have to say, actually, one of the speakers in our program today was talking about that. You have to uh, filter out things and extract the juice and just keep the juice to yourself.
So then we are in an infinite loop, it seems like, because who is going to decide what you filter?
That is where your smartness will come in. If you know yourself, so suppose you're working, and then one of your colleagues told me that this other guy told this thing about you, right? So if you know yourself, and of course once you start knowing yourself, that same ability will help you to identify others also. So you can figure out whether that other person is capable of telling this. So you will have a binary classification, yes, no, or maybe somewhere, maybe, yeah. So then you move away, but you don't really believe that, because if you believe that, you are immediately going to some kind of friction, with a mental tension, and then you go maybe confront the other guy, and they say, no, I am not told like this. Then the third person is involved, and this conflict grows. So take things with a pinch of salt.
So one of I would like your judgment on this, because we have gone ahead in the design of this Vatika and all of this. We have gone ahead with a certain proclivity or a certain thought process. We didn't ask for your approval, and we did things which you are seeing.
No, I didn't know that this is happening.
That this is happening. Many of the things are.
But I don't mind, because I have joined Temple recently, so it has been happening over the last 6 months, I guess.
No, what I mean is that whether this will be here or that will be here, the design was not really, there was no specifications provided. No one understood what we are going to do, but it happened, and everyone is saying good things about it. But what I want your comment on, or your judgment on, is that you mentioned a little while back that what distract us are the senses. Now, so when I ring this bell, so there is the sound of the bell.
Yes.
No matter what you are thinking, this is what takes your attention away.
Yes.
And your mind comes here. Then what happens?
No, that's an interesting way. In fact, that's maybe, then again, if you want to get an answer in, modern technology, you get so much noise and all that. So if you are moving in an aeroplane, so much noise is there. Or if you are just, walking in the railway station, so much noise is there. So these days you have these headphones, noise cancelling headphones.
Noise cancelling headphones.
Yes.
Noise cancelling headphones.
So we need something like that. So this is actually something like, this kind of sounds actually will pull you back from that, cluttered world to something very, nice and sweet.
So where does that nice and sweet end?
Nice and sweet ends in tranquility, in peace.
No, because this sound is just diminishing.
Right.
So it's ending in just no sound.
Oh, that's interesting. But basically what happens, especially now that I am in little bit of, practicing of music, ultimately I'm feeling that, ability to sing has more to do with, internalizing the music in yourself than just the, instead of spelling, explicitly, singing it. And that is where actually I think is the thing. So once you get this noise and you can sort of embed it in your own self, there you really enter a different world.
So what generally people have been saying, becoming one with the music,
One with the music is.
If you are one with the song, then in any case, the song is just happening.
Yeah. I mean, then it's a matter of recreation.
Correct.
So once you have internalized it, it's like, taking another printout.
So in terms of this technology, would you then say that this distraction, first, it takes you away from the distraction into this?
Yeah.
And then if you are listening to it, it keeps going till you are hearing no sound.
Yes.
Which is different from, let's say, when you were sleeping, when you were not hearing any sound at all. Is that the self that you were talking about? Is that the point where, because before that you are recognizing this sound, you said that's a distraction.
Yeah, and probably it's more like a positive distraction, in the sense that not.
What I'm trying to say is you are hearing no sound, the void of sound, you are hearing, which is different from not hearing at all. When you were sleeping, you were not hearing.
Yeah, sleeping is different.
Sleeping, you're not hearing, but here you're hearing no sound.
Yes.
So when you are, so then there is no distraction, no sound.
Right.
So similarly, if there is complete blackness, you're not seeing anything. So my question was that does that seem like an unfiltered sense of self when you're only the subject? The sound is the experience. When it is no sound, there is no.
Well, let me tell you that I think of it like this before. Yeah, but then I think it does, something which we say that it's like settling something, it's a settlement, equilibrium. So it sort of kind of brings you into kind of equilibrium with yourself.
So you've used many of these terms for describing this, which is pleasant, calm, equilibrium and all that. But one of the things we realize is that what's happening is that it is making us listen to nothing ultimately.
Yes.
When we are listening to nothing, then we are just with, first we were only with the sound.
Right.
It pulled us from everything else.
Yes.
We are only with the sound. Now it is not there. Now it is I and the sound. Sound is not there. Only I am left. This is actually what.
Okay, I get you. So probably you're trying to make me say this, but
no, I wanted I understand.
No, but I think we're on the same page.
So more than making you say that, I wanted your approval on the fact that this is actually the technology we have deployed here.
Okay.
That is why when you came in, the first thing we did in the inauguration is there is a bell actually at the front,
right,
which we are ringing. not to symbolize that this is a particular Hindu dharma or Sanatan dharma or this dharma or that dharma, but actually to help what the education system seems to have lost out, which was ubiquitous. The bell was ubiquitous everywhere. Where you start by a technology which Rishi Munis had kind of designed.
Right.
Now we have used that. And I know that some people will actually talk about the fact that, oh, is this pushed by the fact that because this has connotations of a temple, so why is it looking like a temple? Why not a mosque, or why not a church, or why not a gurudwara?
But churches do have bells too.
Yeah. So we really wanted to clarify that this is not to do with any specific ideology or anything, but really something which I didn't know that you would talk about. In the discussion before this, I had no clue. Getting back to, you mentioned that you're practicing music and singing, and you also performed a song a little bit. It would be so nice if people could see that aspect of you in this podcast, if you don't mind.
Well, let me try another Tagore song. Let me sing it in Bengali. Is that fine?
Oh, absolutely. Ekdom.
আমার হিয়ার মাঝে লুকিয়েছিল, দেখতে আমি পাইনি তোমায়, দেখতে আমি পাইনি। আমার হিয়ার মাঝে লুকিয়েছিলে, বাহির পানে চোখ মেলেছি, বাহির পানে আমার হৃদয় পানে চাইনি, আমার ইয়ার মাঝে লুকিয়েছিলে, দেখতে আমি পাইনি তোমায়, দেখতে আমি পাইনি।
I think you've proven the fact that you were talking about becoming one with the song and internalizing it, because I don't think we know you as a renowned singer, but what you did here, I think will not only make all of us find what is incidentally
Here means Hriday, his heart. If you want, I can just translate it into English.
Yeah. I was trying to get you to do that.
You were hidden in the heart of mine, but I did not realize it. Looking at the outside, again, I think it relates with what I told you earlier, that we try to learn only outside things. Looking at the outside, but we are focused on the outside. We never did look inside. So, hidden in the, in fact, I can try to sing it in that way. Hidden in the heart of mine, I did not realize it, still I did not realize it.
Did you make that up right now, or
no? It is a transcreation of mine, which is already it's done by me.
Okay, wonderful. And so now moving, just switching gears. We don't want to take too much time on this podcast, but switching gears is where do you see this going? Both in terms of now that you are, although we don't know how permanently, but it's an acting post. But where do you see IIT going, and where do you see this movement that you are inaugurating today this going?
Yeah, I think this movement has more potential. I think than I mean, when we interacted 1.5 years back, we discussed this, that it looks like a small thing at this point of time, but with the kind of payoffs that you have, in the sense that we generate so much of waste. So instead of generating waste, we actually kind of create a process where the system kind of grows on its own. And you don't have to spend money on removing the waste and to create more waste, right? So this will be kind of self-sustaining. So I think these are huge potential in terms of sustainability and long-term, viability, these kind of activities.
And one of the other things that everyone keeps worrying about, and you mentioned this also in the program that we were having before this, about, if you take IITs per se, the spirit of the students or the mentality or the attitude of the students, which leads to, suicides and things like that, which you mentioned.
Yes.
Do you think that if we get all the students involved in a movement, just like there is Spring Fest, just like there is culture,
Right.
Movement with nature, would that not just a contest or just something, but the whole campus becomes a campus which Kovi Guru had your sincere singing his songs, which he had envisioned.
Yeah, in Vishwavarati, actually, that is the kind of dream world that he tried to create.
Which is now no longer, it is still becoming more and more concrete. But in Kharagpur, if we could become a model.
Yeah, I think Kharagpur has also has constraints in the space getting used for more and more buildings. But still, there is a lot of scope, and we are creating few things, small things. So I think, but it can learn from this kind of, we can learn from this type of exercises and do it in this particular, biophilic way, so that, this can be real attractive places for students to go, and then it will have its own sustainability model.
Yeah, because we used to have the illumination contest.
Right.
Where overnight we would put so much work and, 300 in each hostel, 300 in those days per hostel, that would get created. Of course, it was for just a few minutes.
Right.
But if that kind of energy could be
channelized to create this type of thing, I think that's a very interesting thought. Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah, I think it will. It will. Firstly, it will improve the ambience, environment, and people. I am not into much of gardening and all, but those who are, like my wife, their passion is gardening, and they are one with that. Something like somebody likes music, so that becomes their passion. Those are doing gardening and all, that's their passion. And once you have a passion, and you get your own emotional satisfaction by working through it, I think everybody will be.
Yeah, for example,
a happier person.
When whether it was as the sports part or the soccer part, what we would see is that one would play football.
Absolutely.
But when the hall was playing football, everyone was rooting.
Right.
So if this were to become a football, soccer or sports, because this doesn't exist. Nature doesn't exist either in the academic nor in the soccer or sports. That's the opportunity that I can see.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Let me think through that, because now we are really looking for ideas in our campus to engage more and more students. So at least if this can be one more idea. Yeah, I think that sounds very interesting.
There's a belongingness. Something gets created and there's belongingness.
Absolutely.
With that note, I think we will come to the close of the podcast. Thank you very much for coming here, gracing the occasion, and giving so much time, and making sure that your name remains in the history as the first person with whom the podcast in the Biophilic Studio happened, because many other things can happen, but that record won't get changed.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.